Well, I hope you like using the Steam Deck as much as I do, because it looks like we're going to be using it a lot longer than we thought. How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is Deck Ready, my channel all about the Steam Deck. And in today's video, I have yet another single topic for you guys. But before I get into that, it would really help me out if you subscribe to the channel and set your notifications to all, and check out my channel, Real Ones. The last video I posted is breaking down weapons and why saying it's not about anything is crazy and kind of dumb. And then coming up, I have a full breakdown of the entire Conjuring franchise, which I'm really excited for because that is one of my favorites. It's a lot different than this channel for sure, and a lot more work goes into it, but I'm basically trying to make the horror channel I've always wanted to be able to watch because I just could never find it. So if that sounds interesting to you, it's linked down in the description. But as for the single topic of today's video, it's all about the Steam Deck 2 and how it might be a little bit farther away than everyone, myself included, probably expected. So this is coming from Kepler, who's like the best hardware leaker in the game. They leaked, I'm pretty sure, the whole chassis for the PS5 Pro before it was even announced, and they were able to get their hands on the PS5 Slim early, and there's tons of other hardware leaks related to PC stuff and Valve that they've gotten right. Clearly they have a man on the inside over at whatever manufacturing plant all these companies are using. But in a thread where someone was ironically asking if they should pick up the Xbox ROG Ally 2 because, you know, they were waiting for maybe a Steam Deck 2 or a better MSI Claw, they basically just lived through the phenomena I explained in my last video called Analysis Paralysis, where like you're given so many freaking options and these handhelds are coming out so fast that when you actually go to buy one, you get frozen, because if you buy this one for $500, is there a better one that's going to come out in just 6 months? Who knows? There probably is from one of these manufacturers, but you never know because they just come out randomly throughout the year from all the different manufacturers. So this went on for pages and pages and pages. There were tons of arguments over whether or not the Xbox ROG Ally is really an Xbox, and then tucked away right on like the 4th or 5th page, Kepler responded that the Steam Deck 2 is coming in 2028. Now, I read that and I was like, whoa. Is anyone going to reply to this? No, they just continued arguing about Xbox specs and performance and console war bullshit. But that was like crazy to read from Kepler because, as I mentioned earlier, they're usually right and spot on with their actual leaks and rumors. So just based on the comments I get on this channel and just reading through the general sentiment on Reddit and talking to friends who have Steam Decks, there's like two camps you could be in when you hear that the Steam Deck 2 is coming in 2028. On the one hand, there's all the people who think the Steam Deck is totally spent, it's aging hardware, it's not worth buying anymore because the Steam Deck 2 up until now was right around the corner and it's being totally outclassed by Windows handhelds like the Xbox ROG Ally, the original ROG Ally, the Ally X, the Legion Go, blah, blah, blah. They see raw specs as the only metric that matters and just refuse to engage with anything beyond that, like having trackpads, an 800p screen that can actually push that resolution from games. Just a more well-built device all around than any of these ones that are rushed out the door by the other manufacturers. And I'd guess that those people are the type of people who want to play every single new game as soon as it's released. They want to be on the bleeding edge. They want to buy stuff day one. They don't care about waiting for patches or waiting for discounts. They have money to blow and they're ready to buy the latest and greatest Unreal Engine 5 performance mess that comes out the door, whether it's Mafia: The Old Country, Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater, or, you know, any of these other games that are coming out all the time, like Borderlands 4, for example. That's another one that uses Unreal Engine 5 for no reason and is still using the same art style that it's used since the very beginning. So like those people definitely, I can see why they would want a Steam Deck 2, because if you're trying to play all the games like I just mentioned, you're going to have a pretty rough time on the Steam Deck. You have to install things like lossless scaling to get fake frames. You've got to use insane versions of FSR to get it to ultra performance. You've got to use mods for Unreal Engine 5 to literally strip out features just to get it to run at around 30 FPS. And that's a lot more work than I'd assume most people want to put into actually playing the games they're buying. So if you're buying all these Unreal Engine 5 games that take 5090s to run efficiently and even still have performance issues with the best cards in the industry, yeah, the Steam Deck probably isn't going to work out all that well for you. And I can see why you'd want a more powerful device from Valve. But on the other hand, you have the gamer that I would say is more like me, where you play stuff based on how you're feeling at any given time, and you don't necessarily need to play the latest and greatest stuff unless it directly speaks to you, like Elden Ring, for example. I have started Elden Ring thousands of times. Of course, I had to get into it a little bit when the Steam Deck came out, out because it really was the killer app for the Steam Deck, because when that game launched, performance-wise, not graphically speaking, it ran the best on Steam Deck thanks to Proton and caching the shaders, which were causing a lot of stuttering on PS4, PS5, Xbox Series X, and PC. But you know, I have to be in that mood where like I want a big open world dark fantasy RPG. I want the brutality of a Souls-like, and what activated that within me was playing Elden Ring Nightreign. It showed me all the cool endgame stuff that you have to play around with in Elden Ring, plus a lot of the cool stuff from the DLC, and I was like, I gotta see this in the original game, and that was enough to hook me. So I put 60 hours into it, I want to say, like maybe 55 hours this entire summer, and I was finally able to beat the game. And then Dying Light the Beast is coming out in September. So knowing that it's a sequel to the original Dying Light, it's bringing back Kyle Crane, and he looks awesome. I wanted to play through the original because that was one of the only open world experiences I've ever had where I just went through everything the game had to offer. And when it gave me that message that said you've 100%ed Dying Light, congrats, you can still run around, I was pretty bummed out because it felt like I still wanted to play that game. So I wanted to go back and revisit it. I bounce between racing games all the time. The Crew Motorfest is playable on the Steam Deck. Like, I don't care how new or old a game is. If I'm interested in that subject, whether it's racing, dark fantasy open world, tactical shooters, or whatever, I'll look for the best game in that genre and hope to God that it runs well on my Steam Deck. And because most of those games end up being older games, like from the PS4 generation or earlier than that, I have no trouble running them on the Steam Deck. So I'm using this thing literally every single day. But I'm not criticizing the other side of the coin. There are more games coming out every day than ever. Like when I was a kid in the summer, you'd have all this time off and you'd actually have money to spend because usually I got a job, whether it was landscaping or at Staples or whatever, and then there was nothing to buy because they didn't release games during the summer. You know, during E3 and all that, they would announce a lot of games, but nothing would come out in the summer, which is crazy because that's when kids are off school. And I get that people want to play outside, but that's when I had free time to play video games. But now stuff's coming out left and right. Like, remember back in the day, you would look forward to Tuesday every week because there weren't so many games coming out that they could fill up a Tuesday with maybe 2 or 3 games on the PlayStation Store or Steam, and you'd look through it and look at what was new. Now games are coming out on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Wednesday. They're throwing them out every single freaking day of the week, and they're just coming out like crazy. So I understand how you end up in the camp of wanting the latest and greatest tech, wanting to play everything new. And I also understand how you end up in the camp that I'm in, where you just want to play great games because it's your preferred form of entertainment. And another reason I believe this 2028 release date timeline is because if you look around the industry, it looks like everyone is working on a handheld. Like Xbox might have stopped working on their internal handheld, but if they are still working on it, it's definitely coming out in 2027 or 2028. Nintendo Switch 2 is already out, so they're doing their own thing. But PlayStation, for the next generation, it was just revealed on Moore's Law is Dead's channel. They're basically doing a PS5 Plus, a PS6, and then in between will be the PS handheld that will be dockable like the Switch and Switch 2. And that thing's targeting performance specs that are better than the current PS5. And knowing that, you know, PlayStation teams up with AMD to develop a semi-custom chip, and that's exactly what Valve did for the Van Gogh chip that's in the Steam Deck. I'd imagine that the benchmark for the Steam Deck 2 and this PlayStation handheld are very similar, if not basically the same chip, just tweaked a little bit for the different platform that it's supporting. Knowing that PlayStation is targeting late 2027 or early 2028 for that, I mean, the timing just works out for all these next generation handheld chips to start hitting the market. So yeah, I fully believe that 2028 is the target date for a Steam Deck 2. And I definitely also understand why the hardware brain people would assume the Steam Deck would get a second model sooner than that, because, you know, if you're playing in PC land, graphics cards get updated a lot quicker than consoles do. Like the traditional console life cycle is like 7 to 10 years, whereas graphics cards, if they go 3 to 5 years without the super versions or the TI version or whatever you want to call it being released, you know something has gone dramatically wrong at AMD, Intel, or Nvidia. So it's completely different over in PC land. But the Steam Deck, while it is a PC at its heart, is also trying to bridge the gap between a PC and a console. So 6 years for the Steam Deck to the Steam Deck 2, that feels like the perfect middle point between a PC generation and a console generation. So it makes a lot of sense to me. And the real silver lining is it's not like nothing's going to happen with the Steam Deck in between then. Valve is working on the Deckard headset, which is a VR headset that's allegedly going to run a flavor of SteamOS. They've got new VR controllers that apparently aren't going to be proprietary to that headset. Then of course there's the Fremont machine, which is going to definitely require its own sort of marketing and update cycle to really convince people that they they should jump ship maybe from PlayStation and Xbox and come over to the SteamOS side for a device that's going to run on their TV. And of course, there's the Steam controller too, and whatever else they're working on, like Half-Life 3. I really hope that's real and it actually comes out. But if that's real, that's going to require a huge hype cycle and marketing push of its own. And all of that combined is more than enough to take up the next 3 years of a Valve news cycle. So while yeah, it would be great for my YouTube channel if Valve was moving a little bit quicker with the Steam Deck 2, I don't really care because I'm fine with the Steam Deck 1. I love sitting in front of my TV, watching horror movies I've seen a million times and just playing games on my Steam Deck. I love playing it in bed. I love playing it down here in my basement when I'm exporting videos. Like, I'd love to see new hardware that was a little bit more performant, but in the meantime, if I really start to feel like the Steam Deck is too long in the tooth, Valve has been working with companies like Lenovo to release versions of the Legion Go S that run SteamOS, and I'd assume that there are plenty more versions of handhelds that'll run that operating system coming down the pike that'll have better chips like the Z2 Extreme or whatever else comes after that. So anyway you slice it, there's going to be a way to get better performance out of SteamOS, whether it's with a custom built desktop, the Fremont machine, or another manufacturer's handheld, and that will be more than good enough to hold people over, I would assume, for the Steam Deck too. So yeah, when it comes to leaks and rumors, you guys know I don't love reporting on it, but I was already kind of working on this video anyway because the 3 topic stuff is fun to make, but I don't like stretching out news stories, and we're in that period right before everything explodes at the end of the year where it seems like people are kind of taking their time and not really putting out huge updates or anything because they know it's about to get really crazy. So I didn't want to stretch a bunch of news stories, so I've been trying to think up these topical videos, and I saw this leak from Kepler, who in my experience making 3 videos a week here and 3 videos a week on PS Ready has been more than perfectly reliable over the past 5 or 6 years that I've been doing this. So I figured it would all kind of go hand in hand and help me get some clicks on the video as well. Anyway guys, that's all I've got for you in today's video. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching and shape on.